Not gonna lie, this is the top 5 players that got their jerseys photoshopped into Heat jerseys on Twitter, to be honest with you. What's up guys, my name is Brandon, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking about the 5 all-star players that could force a move by the NBA trade deadline. Now these are players that made some noise during the offseason, or players that I think that could at least make enough noise during the season, so that way they possibly either get traded during the trade deadline or halfway through the season, or possibly make enough noise so that way there's enough speculation for them to be moved on in the next offseason. With that in mind, I'm not going to include Ben Simmons or John Wall just because we've already covered them in previous videos on your screen now, and also we're not going to talk about them because they're not playing up to all-star level forms in my opinion, and to be fair, that's kind of cheating at this point if I don't even rate them as all-stars. Alright, so that's the criteria. Let's get right into the video. So at number 5, we have Kyrie Irving. We all know the situation with Kyrie Irving at the moment. He doesn't want to get the vaccine, forcing Brooklyn to not make him a participant on his team. As of today, Brooklyn have announced that Kyrie Irving will not be a participant because he cannot attend home games or home practices, and therefore will rule him ineligible to be playing for the team. With that in mind, Brooklyn could be forced to move on Kyrie Irving if by midway through the season Brooklyn isn't doing well or doing as well as expectations and Kyrie still hasn't played for the team. There's already recent reports that the Nets and the Sixers discussed a Kyrie for Ben Simmons deal. However, KD kind of blocked that trade and said that he doesn't want Kyrie gone from this team. Other reports suggest that Kyrie will retire if he gets moved on from Brooklyn, as the reason why he signed for Brooklyn is because it's his hometown team. And given the fact that Kyrie Irving only has 2 years left on this deal, with the last season being a player option this offseason, it could be that Kyrie Irving's time in Brooklyn has come to an end and Brooklyn might move him on for another all-star. And with Cam Thomas looking like a suitable replacement for Kyrie Irving, I think it's safe to say that unless Kyrie gets the vaccine, his time in Brooklyn has come to an end. At number 4, we have Damian Lillard. Now with Damian Lillard, it's more so the case of whether or not Portland can live up to his expectations and whether or not he can succeed in Portland. Now, Damian Lillard has been a very loyal guy up to this point and is currently on a supermax contract up until 2024-2025. However, there has been speculation that Damian Lillard could move on, given that Portland hasn't really had that much recent success the past couple seasons. Coupled with the uncertainty of how new head coach Chauncey Billups will do, it could be safe to assume that if things don't go well in Portland, that Damian Lillard might want out by the end of the season, or rumblings might occur in his camp by the trade deadline that he could want out. With that in mind, again, it'll be extremely hard for him to move on because of his supermax contract, and not a lot of teams could afford that contract or match the salaries. However, he still could force a move out if he really wanted to. And given the fact that the West is more loaded and more stacked than ever, I think it's safe to assume that the Portland Trailblazers will struggle, given the fact that they also were ranked 23rd out of 30 teams in opponents' points per game last season. So it could be the case of offensively, Portland is doing really well as they ranked top 5 in that category last season, but defensively they could still struggle, which will result in them being lower down in the standings than where Damian Lillard would like them to be at. So with a lot of variables in mind, Damian Lillard could at least force a move or force speculation from his camp that he could be moved on as early as next offseason. Pardon the interruption, but I am excited to announce that Jonathan and I are starting a brand new show here on the channel called The Morning After, where Jonathan and I will break down what happened on Sunday's football games as well as the basketball weekend review, where we'll look at basketball games as well. Honestly, you guys want to stick around, turn on post notifications and subscribe so that way you guys know when we go live. It'll be at Mondays 11 a.m. Eastern time, and honestly, we can't wait to see you guys there and interact with you guys for our live streams. Alright, let's get back to the video. The next player on our list is Pascal Siakam at number 3. Pascal Siakam, while not having as much trade noise this offseason, last season there was some speculation of him being moved on. After having issues with playing time and where the direction of the Toronto Raptors were going with Nick Nurse in front office, it could be safe to assume that he still feels some sort of way and could be looked to move on. However, given the fact that he still has 3 years left on the deal and the fact that it's still a pretty pricey deal, it could be hard to move on the young power forward. However, the emergence of Precious Achiuwa as a suitable replacement or as a co-star alongside him and Fred VanVleet it's safe to assume that he could possibly still be a cornerstone in a Toronto Raptors team looking to bounce back from a disappointing season. And now that they're back in Toronto, it's safe to assume that they could possibly contend in the East once again. But if they're still struggling midway through the season, this is why he's on the list, because I'm assuming he'll probably force a move out, and his still issues with Nick Nurse and upper management could force that move.
And at number 2, we have Karl Anthony Towns. We're talking about the recent firing of former president of basketball operations Jerson Rosas. Karl Anthony Towns had this to say: "What happened last week added to the list. It's just the same thing every single time. It's something that always leads to instability every single time. I joked about it the day before. I was like, man, it's been a real quiet offseason for Minnesota. It's very different." Boom, they made sure they had one left in the hat. Clearly, Cat's time in Minnesota hasn't been what he's expected. They've only made the playoff once, and that was with Jimmy Butler. Now, with a new squad that's still young and still trying to put pieces together to put a playoff contending squad, he might not want to be there. Yes, he's with his friend D'Angelo Russell and a young and up-and-coming Anthony Edwards. However, the squad around them is still lacking in quality and in depth. Another quote pretty much adding fuel to the fire stated, "I've been defamed by teammates, scapegoated. I've always been a professional. I've been a punching bag, but I do this for the organization. I'm going to continue to do me." Now, with this quote, honestly, I would expect Karl Anthony Towns to maybe force a move out, just because, yes, he's still on a massive contract. However, clearly his time in Minnesota has been great. Furthermore, his next contract will be at 28, meaning that Karl Anthony Towns will be in the prime of his career and will be at a top level. Therefore, he will probably gather a lot of assets. And I think if Minnesota doesn't want to miss out on possibly gaining assets for him, given that he still only has 3 years left on a deal and that he's only 25, I think honestly this is the perfect time to trade him. I think he's going to be gone in the next 2 years, and I think honestly at this point this is where his value is at an all-time high. However, the new ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves probably won't want to trade their best player, given that they just recently bought the organization and they want to appease the fans. Furthermore, they probably don't want to trade Karl Anthony Towns because they just spent a lot on getting D'Angelo Russell. They traded multiple first-round picks to the Golden State Warriors in that trade, and the optimism of Anthony Edwards and what he can do in his sophomore season and moving forward for the franchise, I think really could add fuel to not trading their star player, Karl Anthony Towns. And at number 1, we have Bradley Beal. Now, I think it's the most obvious pick here. Bradley Beal has to leave the Washington Wizards if he wants to succeed elsewhere. The franchise is in the middle of a rebuild where they just traded their second star player, Russell Westbrook, for pretty much pennies on the dollar. Do I believe that he will gain a lot of attention? Bradley Beal? No, because he's a very loyal player and very loyal to the Washington Wizards. However, he hasn't signed that extension that Washington put on the table. And in fact, he only has 1 year left on his deal. After the season, he has a player option in the 2022-2023 season. So in next offseason, he could potentially walk for free. That means that whatever team that wants to trade for Bradley Beal will take the risk of possibly having him opt out and sign elsewhere. However, that shouldn't deter teams from trying to trade for him. He's still an all-star level player and probably one of the best shooting guards in the game right now. That being said, they probably can get him for the cheap, or possibly even only 1 first-round pick and maybe 1 young player, as long as the salaries match up. However, his value is still very high given his contract situation, and Washington might play hardball, so the situation might end up being that Bradley Beal walks in free agency, which will really suck for the franchise, given that they could have traded him for multiple picks or some assets even before this season happened. So that was 5 All-Stars that could possibly end up elsewhere. Let me know in the comment section down below whether or not you want me to go in depth with any of these trades. Again, let me know if you want me to go in depth with any of these trades for any players on this list, or maybe any other player that you could think of. Let me know in the comment section down below. Again, please do like and subscribe. Take it easy, have a good one, and peace.